Hi everyone, it's Heidi again. Guys, we are finally reacting to a Black Forest family video. You guys have been recommending this channel like crazy to me. They seem really awesome, so I'm really excited. It's about time. So we're going to react to the video, The Big Debate, American Capitalism versus German Socialism, Salaries, Taxes, and Social Contributions. And this was actually only released about a month ago. And so pretty fresh, which I also love about videos that we react to too. I love when they're a little more recent, so we don't have to, deal with anything that might have changed since then or anything like that. But yeah, if you like the video, make sure to like and subscribe. Definitely go like and subscribe the Black Forest family as well. They're really cool. So, but otherwise, come see me on Twitch. I'd love to talk to you guys about this kind of stuff if you have any insights. And then let's do this. It's a bit of a longer one. It's 46 minutes long, so let's do this.
In today's video, I'll be tackling two scenarios. I'll be contrasting the incomes, tax burdens, and payments into things like healthcare, public pensions, like Social Security, unemployment insurance, and education for a single worker in both the US and Germany, and for a family of four. And at the end of this video, hopefully have a final, definitive answer to the question, who really takes home more money at the end of the day?
I can see why it's called The Big Debate. Already, like, such a well-done video. I love it.
Over the past year and a half on this channel, we've built up a library of videos documenting the similarities and differences between our native country of the United States.
Oh, here, sorry. We do not need closed captions on this. My bad.
And our new home country of Germany. And unsurprisingly, the cost of living factors into many of these videos. From discussions on the cost of higher education, comparisons on public versus private healthcare, analysis on the cost of housing and residential construction, to even comparisons on the cost of groceries. Really, it's nearly impossible to discuss these topics without also bringing up wages and taxes and the effects that they have on both affordability and purchasing power. But over the last year and a half, we've also noticed a common counter-argument, usually from Americans when presented with outcomes that showcase greater affordability here in Germany. And truth be told, you're not necessarily wrong. Outside of the federal minimum wage, where it's actually higher in Germany, Americans do have higher average incomes and lower taxes overall. But does that actually mean that Americans have greater purchasing power? Because here's the thing, while American taxes do contribute $1.4 trillion into healthcare and another $202 billion into education, Americans still end up paying more out of pocket for the very thing that German taxes cover at nearly 100%. So simply arguing with me, yeah, well, I make more money. Well, that might be true, but it's not necessarily applicable unless you look at the bigger picture and take into account all of those out-of-pocket costs.
True. Also, I want to throw in there, she mentioned that the US has a higher average income, but we do have a lot of very rich people here. And so they kind of bring up the average a lot, which is kind of interesting. But that's at least what I understand of it. I know maybe other people have different ideas of it, but it is kind of funny that we use that sometimes to be like, oh yeah, we make way more. Like, who does? Who does? These people do. Anyway, maybe not the average American, you could say. So, that's what I'm here to do. Let's get started. She looks so nice. Like, I love her eyes. They're just like very nice eyes.
All right, so before I dive into dissecting wages, I do think it's important that I take a step back first just to briefly explain how taxes and social contributions are handled in the respective countries. At a very basic level, both the US and German income tax is what is called a progressive tax, which means that those who make more money pay a higher tax rate. If you make very little money, you pay no income tax at all. If you make a decent amount of money, you pay a fraction of it to the government. If you make a lot of money, the fraction you pay is theoretically higher. And the system is designed in this way because those who have enough money not to worry about putting food on the table each day should, in theory, be able to afford to pay more to the government. That's the theory, at least. But you know, it's interesting. While the thresholds for these different tax brackets do in fact differ between the US and Germany, they're actually handled very much in the same way. For example, there are different tax class filing factors and deductions that can change this dynamic in both countries. Like if you file as a single person, married filing jointly, married filing separately. And in both the US and Germany, there's a difference between a marginal tax rate and what's termed an effective tax rate. That's because when your income enters a higher tax bracket, only the income that falls into the higher tax bracket is taxed at the higher rate. Now, there are notable exceptions to this rule. The big one that comes to mind is the American Social Security and the German social contributions, because these are actually what are termed regressive taxes, which means that in theory, the more you make, technically the less you pay in terms of a percentage of your overall income. Those who make very little money have to pay the full percentage. Those who make a decent money also pay that full percentage, but when you make enough money, you get to stop paying the tax after a certain point. This means that someone making $1 million or €1 million a year pays a tiny, tiny fraction of the percentage that almost everyone else has to pay.
Yeah, that's very interesting. Maybe it's because they feel like the people who are making less are the people that need that money, and those are the people where it usually comes back to them. I don't know. That's pretty interesting.
Next, the other major hurdle that we need to discuss when comparing wages and taxes between two countries, particularly when those two countries have different currencies like the US and Germany, we also need to have a brief discussion about the exchange rate and the role that that plays on relative wages. Very quickly, exchange rates are defined as the price that one nation or economic zone's currency can be exchanged for another currency. And the values of domestic and foreign currency capture a lot of economic factors and variables and can fluctuate for various reasons. So as you can see from this graphic, over the past 10 years, the exchange rate between the euro and the dollar has fluctuated considerably. For example, in March of 2014, the euro was very strong. At this time, €1 was equal to $1.40, which is fabulous if you're a German worker because it meant that you had greater buying power if you wanted to travel to the US or have your salary converted into dollars. But it was not so great if you were an American who was planning on moving to Germany, like my husband, Jonathan. We've shared before in the past that Jonathan moved here in May of 2013. And while it wasn't at the historic high, the euro was still very, very strong. And at that time, he was working for an American company. So when he moved to Germany, he had his wages converted from American dollars to euros. Now, this wasn't his actual wages, but for simplicity's sake, had his earnings been an even $100,000 in the US when he moved to Germany and had his earnings converted, he was now only making just a little over 75,000 euros a year. Now, not all employers will treat your wages this way.
That's interesting.
But his did.
Yeah.
And it kind of hurt.
Yeah, especially since it was a US company. Just because of where he was living, they're like, oh no, we're gonna, we'll pay you based on the wage of that location. That's pretty, that would be kind of rough,
But things have changed significantly since 2013. Had he moved from the US to Germany in October of this year, when €1 was only worth about 96 cents in the US, that $100,000 salary in the US would have converted to over 104,000 euros here in Germany.
Right.
Now, today, the day I'm recording this video, the exchange rate happens to rest at €1 equals $1.06. So while it's not quite a one-to-one comparison, It's pretty darn
That's very
close.
close.
I mean, close enough to where if you were just talking about everyday purchasing items, you could probably roughly say that they're about the same cost. However, throughout this video today, because we're going to be dealing with some significant wages and taxes, I'm going to do my best to show both currencies alongside on your screen.
Thank you. She understands that I need her to walk me through it.
Okay, now that I have the formalities out of the way, let's get down to business of comparing our wages. For the first comparison, let's take a look at single workers, their taxes and expenses in 2022.
Single
in the
worker
United
Steve.
States, our scenario one is going to be single worker Steve. He's 23, single, and has no kids. His occupation is an engineer, and he holds a bachelor's degree in mechanical engineering, so he has about 2 years of experience outside of university. His salary is $87,676 a year. So divided into 12 monthly payments, he brings home a gross salary of $7,306.33 each month. In Germany, we have single worker Max. And wouldn't you know it, he's also 23, single, and has no kids, and also happens to work as an engineer. So he also has that same 2 years of experience straight out of university. His salary in Germany is 67,264 euros each year. Divided into 12 monthly payments, he brings home a gross salary of 5,605 euros and 33 cents per month. Also, just a quick side note, if you're curious where I got those wages from, they each came from the average salary from someone in that position with 2 years of experience in the US and Germany, as referenced on Glassdoor and Indeed.com. But what we can see is that even adjusted for the exchange rate, before taxes, social contributions, and out-of-pocket costs, yes, Steve does in fact have a higher salary than Max. In this scenario, Steve makes about 18.5% more working in the United States as a mechanical engineer before taxes. Now, for the second comparison, we're also going to take a look at an American Steve and a German Max. Except these two men are 15 years further down the line in their work experience, and they have very different personal and professional dynamics that have impacted their lives over the years.
Oh, I'm
so
curious.
Let's take a look at their wages and compare them for 2022. Our US family scenario here is, once again, Steve. But he's now 38 years old and has been promoted to senior engineer. With 15 years of experience under his belt, he brings home $154,527 a year. Steve is married to Stephanie, who's 36 years old and works as a school teacher. She also has around 15 years of experience, and she brings in $68,693 a year. This gives them a total household gross income of $223,220, or around $18,601 per month. For future reference, Steve and Stephanie have 2 kids, Sam, who's 4, and Sally, who's 2. This will become important later on as we begin to calculate their out-of-pocket expenses in subsequent sections. Moving on to Germany, we also have Max, who is now a family man. He's also 38 and promoted to senior engineer. With 15 years of experience under his belt, the average salary in Germany that he could expect has been quoted at 99,091 euros a year. He's married to Mila, a 36-year-old school teacher who also has around 15 years of experience in her belt. She brings home 54,116 euros a year, which gives them both a total household gross income of 153,207 euros.
That is quite a difference between and maybe this is another topic, but from the engineering side, that is quite a big chunk that was just kind of cut out there. But like compared to the teacher thing, maybe I wonder if it's, what's the percentage on that? I don't know. Maybe we can figure it out. Someone in the comments figure it out. But I don't know. It seems like it's a lot less than in the engineer section than in the teacher section, which is kind of interesting to me. Maybe it's just because the teacher was already a lot lower than the engineer. But like just seeing that drastic difference, I'm like, oh my gosh. Interesting. But yeah, we'll continue.
Or around 12,767 euros per month. And wouldn't you know it, Max and Mila also have 2 kids, Martin, who's 4, and Maria, who's 2. Once again, adjusted for the exchange rate before taxes, social contributions, and out-of-pocket costs, the American family still has significantly higher gross incomes than our German family. In this scenario, the American family makes about 27.1% more than the German family before taxes.
Interesting. So I like that she brought that in. It's not just, how much money does all America make and then find the average of that or whatever. It's, she's comparing people who would be in the same position. I love that. So it's still, I guess in the US we would still have a higher income than in Germany or somewhere like that. Okay, that's good to know. I love that because I've never seen a comparison quite specific like that.
In 1879, Benjamin Franklin is famously quoted as writing, "In this world, nothing is certain except death and taxes." And it still very much seems accurate here in 2023. So with that in mind, let's go ahead and start to calculate what each of our scenarios here are going to have to pay in taxes and social contributions. So let's get started first with the single workers. Now, for single worker Steve, it's important to note that currently 41 US states and the District of Columbia levy a personal income tax for the state. So for this calculation, we're locating single worker Steve in Denver, Colorado, with a personal income tax rate of 4.55%. It's a bit below the average, but it's a flat tax levied on all income groups, so it's a bit easier to calculate. For this calculation, I'm presuming that Steve is not yet making a contribution to a 401k, a Roth IRA, or has any other itemized deductions. I'm just keeping things simple here for now. With a gross income of $87,676, Steve would have an effective federal tax rate of 13.75% and an effective state tax rate of 3.77%. Between those taxes and payments to FICA, which is the Federal Insurance Contributions Act, which funds Social Security and Medicare, Steve paid $22,069, just over 25% in taxes and contributions, leaving him with a take-home pay of $65,607. Now, over in Germany. There are no local or state income taxes levied. However, those living in the former West Germany do have to pay something called a solidarity surcharge, or a Solidaritätszuschlag. It's a surcharge on income tax and corporation tax introduced to meet the cost of German unification. And although it's currently 5.5%, as of 2021, the solidarity surcharge will no longer be applied to income from natural persons with an income up to 73,000 euros, or 151,000 for jointly taxable couples. So this does not apply to Max. Like the majority of Germans, Max does not claim religious affiliation and does not pay church tax. And like me, he happens to be a member of the AOK health insurance, which has an additional surcharge of 1.3%. Assuming no other deductions, Max pays 13,870 euros in income tax and has roughly 39% of his income levied for either taxes or social contributions. This gives him a net income of 40,831 euros as take-home pay. So yes, there happens to be a pretty sizable income difference between Max and Steve. After you take out taxes and social contributions, as well as adjust for the differences in the exchange rate, Steve actually makes 44% more than Max. But what about families? What does this dynamic look like? Well, let's take a look. For the American family of 4 living in Colorado, their taxes probably look quite a bit like this. As a married couple with 2 children, giving them 4 personal exemptions, they're paying just over $35,000 in federal taxes, another $12,351 in FICA, and $8,717 in Colorado state tax. At this time, I'm only looking at the required payments. So I'm still not going to include a 401k or an IRA contributions in their deductions. Yet. You'll have to stick around for this one in a bit.
Oh my gosh.
But what this means at the end of the day for the American family is that they're still paying around 25% of their income in taxes and contributions because despite making a lot more money, having children dramatically changes their deductions. Their take-home pay is roughly $167,124. Now for the German family. Assuming we're filing jointly and both Max and Mila are tax category 4,
I'm really interested about how church tax works over in Germany. I don't think we have a church tax here. I know that at least with the religion that I grew up in, I'm not part of it anymore, but we would just pay the church, but it wasn't considered a tax. We called it tithing, but it was like a percentage. It was like 10% of our income, but it wasn't under the government or anything like that, which was like... That's another topic for another time, but I'm wondering how church taxes work. I'm not really very familiar with that.
With a joint income of 153,207 euros, they did hit the married income threshold for solidarity surcharge, which cost them 110 euros and 35 cents. Together, they paid just over 36,000 euros in income tax, and an additional 12,900 euros went towards their pension insurance. 1,664 euros and 59 cents towards unemployment insurance, 8,927 euros and 20 cents towards health insurance, and 1,710 euros and 53 cents in long-term care insurance. Together, this means that the amount they paid in taxes and social contributions amounted to 62,147 euros and 1 cent, giving them an effective tax rate of about 40.5%. Leaving them with a take-home pay of 91,058 euros and 66 cents. So guys, even if we compare here the families in both the US and Germany, well, not only does the American family make more on average in wages, but they pay a lot less in taxes. So again, we probably aren't so surprised just yet in this video that the American family does have significantly greater take-home pay after all of that's taken into account.
Maybe I should have kids.
But to be honest here, if we were to just stop the video at this point, we wouldn't really be looking at the bigger picture. Because the thing is, when looking at these calculations, our German family and our German single worker has already prepaid into a lot of things that Americans choose to pay for out of pocket. So for the next section, I think it's important that we start to take into account all of those other factors to exactly find out how much does that level the playing field. So let's start taking all of that into account.
Yes, that's exactly right. Duh! This makes me like, oh yeah, I'm okay in the US right now, but I know what's coming. I already know. And this is when we as US citizens get depressed, is this right here. Here we go.
The United States spends more per student on colleges and universities than nearly every other country in the developed world, according to the latest statistics released by the Organization for Economic Cooperation and Development. And hey, if you would like a more detailed breakdown on the costs of university between the US and Germany, well, we have a video on it. So if you want to take a look at that, please click the link down in the description below in this video. But to summarize, most American graduates have some help paying for college, whether it's through scholarships, grants, or financial help from their parents, or a combination of all three. But since the US does not have free university tuition like we have here in Germany, well, it's only fair that we at least make the presumption that, like the majority of American university graduates, Steve has some student loans to pay off. Let's take a look at the side-by-side for our single workers, Steve and Max. Now, Max went to uni in Germany and left with no student loan debt. But things are different for Steve. According to SparrowFi, the average student loan debt at the end of a 4-year mechanical engineering degree in the United States is $23,000. For our calculation, we'll presume that Steve is on a standard 10-year repayment plan with a current interest rate for federal student loans of 5%.
Oh, freaking interest.
This means that he has a monthly payment of $243.95. Now, at his income, Steve can deduct up to $2,500 of the amount of interest he paid during each year, which does in fact reduce his taxable income. And presuming the repayment plan presented above at 5% interest, that does change our calculation a tiny amount, as he now has an additional $146.37 in student loan interest to deduct on his taxes. So at the end of the day, his take-home pay goes down to $65,498 after the deduction. And with 12 student loan payments totaling $2,927.40, this further declines to $62,570.60 per year. Okay, so that takes care of Steve. But let's also take a look at our families. Once again, both of our income earners in Germany benefited from low to no cost college educations and left with no debt. They also get to benefit from this system when it comes to their children. Whether they choose to pursue technical, trade, or university degrees, their taxes have helped to pay for their future children's educations, as well as contribute to the education of the entire community. Now, back in the United States, I'm going to give Steve and Stephanie the benefit of the doubt that with 15 years of work experience under their belt, that they did happen to stick to their 10-year repayment plan, and that they currently carry no student loan debt for this calculation. But that doesn't necessarily take into account the college education costs for their children. Now, while there is no law that stipulates that parents are required to pay for college in the United States, the majority of American families do consider this as part of their budget. According to educationdata.org, nearly 2/3 of American parents who expect their child to attend college are saving or creating plans to cover the costs. On average, parents save $5,143 annually for their child's college, with about 30% putting that money into what's known as a 529 plan. So with two little ones' futures to think of, let's presume that Steve's family is giving the average of $5,143 into a 529 plan. Again, while this doesn't happen to change their tax situation, it does in fact reduce their disposable income down to $156,838, or $13,069.83 per month.
Yeah, I was very lucky. My parents actually paid for the first, was it the first 2 years? One year? I don't remember, but for the first little bit of my college degree, my parents did pay for my college. That was crazy. I still think about that and I'm like, what the heck? But then I was able to get help. Oh gosh, what was the organization? I don't remember, but I was able to get some government help for the last couple of years of my degree, and so I actually did not pay. I think it was fully covered, which was fantastic. So I actually did not come out of school with any debt, which has made a really, really, that's been huge. But that definitely is not very common, I think. So I was just very fortunate, I think.
Next up is healthcare, and it's a big one. Wealthy countries, including the US, tend to spend more per person on healthcare and related expenses than lower income countries. However, even as a high-income country, the US spends more per person on healthcare than comparable countries. Yet, despite the crushing effect that these costs have on American lives, the US is the only industrialized nation without universal health insurance. The Kaiser Family Foundation estimates that the country's collective medical debt is almost $200 billion. And again, guys, I feel like this goes without saying, but this video is already long enough, so there's really no feasible way that I could comprehensively cover the difference between public and private healthcare in both the US and Germany. But we've dedicated 2 videos to breaking this down in detail, giving real world examples. So if you want to learn more, please click the links down in the description of this video. Now, as I mentioned earlier, for the single workers and the family of workers in Germany, well, they've already prepaid their healthcare costs. So if we're going to do a fair and balanced comparison, it's only right that I do my best to try to estimate these costs for Steve and Stephanie's family in the United States. And because the majority of Americans are not actually enrolled in Medicare or Medicaid, but actually participate in the private healthcare system, I'm going to be using this as the benchmark for this analysis. When I worked for an American university, I was enrolled with a PPO plan through Blue Cross Blue Shield of Kansas City. And although the copy of my HR briefing book is from 2014, I'm going to use it because it's a real world example of the costs associated with healthcare. And really, it was a pretty good plan as far as American coverage and cost is concerned. So again, watch the video in the description if you'd like a full explanation. But that being said, the dollar has had an average inflation rate of 2.91% per year between 2014 and today, producing a cumulative price increase of just over 25%. So I'm going to take those costs from 2014 and increase them by 25%. To be balanced. Okay, so assuming Steve was offered the same PPO plan through Blue Cross Blue Shield at his engineering firm, adjusted for inflation, his rates for his premium are actually really pretty low at just $55 a month. But from there's a lot of factors that could change his financial situation. With this plan, Steve would need to hit a deductible of approximately $3,100 before his insurance even paid just 80% of the costs. And this is all assuming that the doctors he sees are in network. But you know, he's a 23-year-old guy. I'm gonna give him the benefit of the doubt that he's probably a pretty healthy dude. And he's probably only going to see the doctor once a year and the dentist twice a year for his regular checkups. And he's only paying probably $40 a pop in a copay in order to go see them. In the end, between the premiums and these copays, it's not a huge hit to his disposable income. It's only about $780 in total, but I'll take it out because, again, we're trying to be fair here. Right. Now, for families in the US with private healthcare, things get quite a bit more expensive. So let's take a look. Under the same PPO plan with inflation, a family health insurance premium would cost roughly $910.50 every month. Under this plan, should they have any medical needs, they would need to have a deductible to hit first, which is approximately $1,250 before insurance began to pay 80% of the costs. Then a yearly out-of-pocket maximum of approximately $7,000 before 100% of the costs are covered. But again, you know, making these kinds of calculations is ultimately really, really tough because we have 4 people here to account for. If they're healthy and they're only going to just their regular doctor's checkups, you know, they might just have that premium and a copay here or there to worry about. But if they get into an accident, if anyone happens to become ill or disabled, it can radically change your financial situation. According to the Commonwealth Fund, the median yearly household spending and out-of-pocket costs in the state of Colorado in 2017 was $1,150. So if we take this amount, plus 12 months of a $910.50 premium, which totals just under $11,000, we get a total of $12,076 in healthcare costs, reducing their disposable income to $144,762 and a monthly take-home pay of $12,063.50.
Still a lot. So far. Everyone go into engineering.
Next up is unemployment insurance. And in the United States, all of the US states, with the exception of Montana, are what are termed at-will employment. Most do have exceptions, but the states of Florida, Alabama, Louisiana, Georgia, Nebraska, Maine, New York, and Rhode Island do not follow any exceptions. And essentially, what at-will employment means is that an employer can terminate an employee for no reason, except an illegal one, or for no reason without incurring legal liability. At-will also means that an employer can change the terms of an employment relationship with no notice and no consequences. In contrast, there are significant worker protections here in Germany. Someday, I think it would be super interesting to make a video on this subject because, quite frankly, it is very difficult to lose your job here in Germany. And even if you did lose your job because maybe your position happened to be eliminated altogether, Germans still benefit from a continuation of healthcare coverage and actually pretty generous unemployment insurance as well. In short, you will benefit from 60% of your previous average wage, or 67% if you have children, up to a maximum of 7,050 euros per month in West Germany and 6,750 euros in East Germany. Now, the US Department of Labor does have an unemployment program. But to be honest, it's not much. If you're looking at a single worker like Steve or a family man like Steve who actually has a much higher wage, in total, they're probably gonna get anywhere from like 240 to 450 bucks a week, which ultimately ends up being around 15% of their wages. So since unemployment insurance is one of those things that Germans actually pay for through social contributions, again, it's only fair that we presume that both single Steve and family man Steve are paying into some kind of safety net in the event that they happen to lose their job. The only problem is that these type of supplemental insurance policy plans don't really exist in the United States. So honestly, the best protection is to build up a robust emergency fund through savings.
Right.
But that's something that's easier said than done. It was reported in 2020 by the Federal Reserve that 37% of Americans would not be able to pay a $400 emergency expense without either borrowing money or selling something. But
Wow. Wow. That's really interesting. $400, that's not much, you know. And living here, that is definitely, oh man, you have to prepare for things like that because that's just how it works here. If someone has a medical emergency, if someone loses their job, anything like that, you don't have a lot of cushion unless you create it yourself. That's very interesting. That was the number one thing in my finance classes, things like that, that make sure that you have a $10,000 savings just at all times. Just make sure you have $10,000 just sitting there, just in case something happens. And if you don't have that, it's kind of stressful because you never know when something's going to change so quick. So that's interesting. 37% is quite a bit.
But fair is fair. And in Germany, unemployment insurance totals 1.2% of your gross income. And while saving just a little over 1% of your income every month isn't exactly going to build up your savings quickly, it's something. And again, I'm doing my best to be fair and balanced here. So for our US single Steve, this is going to reduce his take-home pay by $1,052 and bring down his disposable income to $60,739. For the family, 1.2% of their gross cumulative income is $1,838.48, which will bring down their disposable income to $142,923.52.
Okay.
Now, along the same lines of unemployment insurance, Germans also pay social contributions into long-term care insurance, which compensates you for loss of income and the cost of long-term nursing care, whether due to an accident, illness, or old age. And what is really cool about this system is that it's not just to help compensate for the cost of a traditional nursing home. It can also help pay for the wages of a loved one to take care of you at home. So if you're a parent and one of your children develops a chronic illness or a long-term disability, this can also be used to help pay you as their caregiver. Yeah, it's pretty fabulous actually. And to be honest, it makes this kind of comparison super difficult because this isn't something that generally exists in the United States.
No.
So as the American population ages, more and more are taking out private long-term care insurance that is somewhat similar to Germany's, covering many types of long-term care, including both skilled and non-skilled care, and some may even include coverage for a range of services like adult daycare, assisted living, medical equipment, and informal home care. Now, finding a quote for these type of plans online is actually kind of difficult because many of the estimated costs, well, they start for people who are looking for this type of insurance at the age of 55 and older. Not exactly something that a 23-year-old is looking to invest in per se. According to the American Association for Long-Term Care Insurance and their 2022 Data and Statistics Report, a basic yearly premium for a 55-year-old healthy single male is $950, and a single female at the same age is $1,500. Jump just 5 years, and that plan is now $1,175 for a 60-year-old male and $1,900 for a 60-year-old female. In other words, this shows about a 20% increase every 5 years. So if I work backwards, taking a 20% regression every 5 years on the premium, single worker Steve could expect a yearly premium of just under $250 and the family just under $1,000 a year to insure both partners.
I love how they didn't even
In Germany,
mention...
the statutory pension insurance benefit, or the gesetzliche Rentenversicherung, is paid out to individuals from retirement age and provides basic payments of around 70% of your working net income. In contrast, the US Social Security replacement rate is around 40%. However, that proportion can vary widely depending on how much you earned during your working years. And now this replacement rate, quite frankly, shouldn't be surprising. The fact that Germans get about 70% of their income and Americans only 40%, because Germans actually pay more into this state-funded pension system than their American counterparts do into Social Security. In Germany, everyone must contribute 18.6%, half by their employer and half by themselves, each bearing 9.3% of their net salary, up to a maximum contribution ceiling of 7,050 euros in the West and 6,750 euros in the Eastern German states. In contrast, in the United States, everyone must only contribute 12.4%. This is again shared half and half by the employers and the employees, meaning that each only pays 6.2% of their wages, up to the taxable maximum of $147,000 of yearly income in 2022. Now, there are a litany of retirement programs out there, from 401ks to Roth IRAs, and honestly, even how much you choose to contribute to these plans is variable. So to be fair and transparent, I'm only gonna ask that the American workers contribute to an additional 3.1% of their gross income to retirement. Because again, that 3.1% is the difference between what Germans pay into the state pension and what Americans pay as a percent of their income into Social Security. I'll calculate this as a 401k. Because this is the most common type of employer-sponsored retirement plan in the US, and it helps with tax deductions.
Really quickly, I just love this like stock video. It's just like, okay, they're telling the model, all right, just hold this notebook and just kind of stroke it. You know what I mean? Like, how long do they have to sit and do that? Anyway, I think that kind of stuff is so funny. But yeah, 401k. Very important here.
So for single worker Steve, 3.1% of his gross income of $87,676 amounts to $2,717.96. However, as a 401k, this reduces his taxable income. And it ultimately means that he only has $1,891 less each year in disposable income. Now, for the family, 3.1% of their joint income amounts to just under $7,000. But again, if I structure this as a 401k, it reduces their taxable income and only ultimately means that they see a reduction of just under $5,000 each year in their disposable income.
Okay. Oh, childcare. Woo! This is why.
All right, guys, so we're actually down to the final category. And for some of you, this last category might seem like a little bit of a curveball. Childcare costs aren't something that is directly listed on the social contributions. But just like higher education, it's nonetheless part of the socialized system here. Because in Germany, the holistic education and upbringing of your child is a community endeavor. So it makes sense that community funds should be used for it. This thinking has caught on somewhat in the United States. While there are already 4 states in the US with free pre-K for 3- and 4-year-olds, there actually was a big push last year under the Biden administration to try to pass a bill guaranteeing free pre-K nationwide. Ultimately, this push for universal pre-K did fail. It didn't make it into the bill. But it's the first time in my memory that the nation has collectively thought about even passing something remotely similar to what we have here in Germany. Nonetheless, for this comparison, our single workers don't have kids, so it doesn't really change their finances any. But for our families, the difference in paying for childcare and not having to pay for childcare makes a huge impact on your take-home pay and your disposable income every month. So for example, should Max and Mila and their 2 children be located in Berlin, for example, Kita, which is for smaller children, and Kindergarten is completely free. The only thing they would have to pay for is about $24 a month per child for food, which is practically nothing. It's pretty incredible.
They probably use that to feed their kids at home anyway. So, yeah.
In addition, they're collecting something called Kindergeld at 250 euros a month per child until the age of 18. Our German family receives 500 euros every month, tax-free, to help offset the costs of raising little ones. On the flip side of things, Steve and Stephanie also have 2 small children, one in daycare and the other in pre-K. For full-time, full-day daycare in Denver, the average cost is $1,575 per month. For pre-K, the costs are slightly less, but quite honestly not much, as the average cost is $1,539 per month for, again, full-time, full-day programs. To be fair, if your 2 kids go to the same facility, these companies will often offer what they term a sibling discount. In Denver, the sibling discount ranged from 5 to 50%. But most commonly, the source I used, which actually analyzed the pre-K and daycare rates all the way down by the differences in zip code and neighborhood, saw that a 10% reduction was pretty much the standard rate for a second child. So we could safely presume that our American family in Denver is paying a whopping $2,956.50 per month in childcare alone.
Yep.
Spread that out over 12 months, and guys, you can see the dramatic effect. It reduces their disposable income by $35,478.
Man. No wonder the desire to have kids here is going down. I feel like that is a lot. Kids are expensive and they're worth it, I hear, but I don't know because I haven't tried it. Anyway, that's kind of painful. I also want to say I'm so impressed on the amount of research and the amount of effort and just detail that went into this video. Props to them. That's pretty amazing. They went into a lot of different things and just the math of it. No, pretty incredible. I love this.
All right, guys, so if you're still here in this video and you don't yet have a headache from all of the numbers, I'm here to share with you the final results. As a single worker, at the end of all of the calculations, well, Steve is still significantly better off in terms of income. So even when we adjust things here for the exchange rate, as a single worker in your early 20s in this particular profession, things were quite a bit better in the United States in terms of money. On the flip side of things, the families saw a much, much closer final outcome. So when adjusted For the currency exchange rate as of today, Max and Mila actually had just over $1,000 more dollars, if that's the currency we're using, in disposable income. So yeah, it's a pretty tight margin for sure. But technically speaking, the German family did come out ahead of the American family. But here's what's so interesting. Again, I spoke earlier in this video about exchange rates and how they can fluctuate. So if we were to go just 2 years back in time when the euro was quite a bit stronger than the American dollar, these dynamics change dramatically. We would see an even greater difference in take-home pay, with the German family coming out even further ahead than the American family. And quite frankly, that disposable income between Steve and Max would be a heck of a lot closer. And ultimately, personally, I think what this exercise illustrates is 2 really important takeaway points here. First, while wages are higher and taxes are lower in the United States, at the end of the day, when you take into account all the out-of-pocket costs, the difference isn't as significant as many think it is. We actually live pretty similar lives when it comes to take-home pay. And second, I think Americans really need to think long and hard about what those statutory contributions, or what some like to term socialist taxes, actually end up buying you. And that's guaranteed peace of mind. Because while I might be able to sit here and calculate the theoretical payments to help cover the costs of things like unemployment insurance, or the loss of your job, or what happens if you or your child gets cancer and you're unable to work and you have all these medical bills, while I might be able to theoretically plan ahead for all of those costs, the reality is most Americans aren't doing that.
U.S. personal bankruptcy due to medical debt, 67%. 66.5% of all bankruptcies were tied to medical issues. Yeah, okay. I wonder how many bankruptcies happen. I wonder if they have anything like 1 in however many Americans go bankrupt every, whatever. I just wonder, but yeah, medical issues are very, very scary here. Even when I get sick with the flu and I have to go to urgent care or something like that, I end up paying hundreds of dollars to basically just be told, buy this medicine at the store. It's just kind of ridiculous, but yeah, kind of interesting.
And America sees vastly greater rates of personal bankruptcy and lower rates of average household wealth than Germany because of it. And you know,
right. I know people personally who make way more money than I do. Way more. And I have more, more money than them because I'm not in debt as much as they are, or things like that. I don't have credit card debt like they do and stuff like that. It's really, I don't know. So that's definitely something to keep in mind as well. That there's a difference between income and like wealth, I guess you can say. It's kind of, anyway, an interesting subject.
Oh, honestly, truly, while I might agree with you that I think American healthcare is better and fancier, perhaps, than the healthcare that I might receive here in Germany, to me,
I don't know.
This is like making the Lamborghini argument. Yes. Although they may still seat 5 passengers and both are very safe with good outcomes, a Lamborghini Urus is a better and fancier car than the Volkswagen. But presuming that the average family should be able to afford a Lamborghini to meet their basic needs is utterly ludicrous. I think most would agree that we would rather see everyone in our community have free access to a Tiguan paid through taxes than see programs like GoFundMe attempt to crowdsource fund a Lambo. All right, guys, so, this is by far the longest and most comprehensive video I've ever put together. And
amazing.
If you guys have recommendations or suggestions for ways that I can make this video more accurate or update it so that, I can be more comprehensive in my analysis,
She did a fantastic job. I love that. I'm sure that there are some things that could be improved, sure. But I'm blown away. I think they did a fantastic job.
all ears. Please leave them down in the comment section below. Because actually I do think it would be super interesting if we continued this thought experiment into next week and take a look at more cost of living factors. Continue to track Steve and Max through things like housing costs, cost of transportation, and costs of food. Because all of those things play a role in what our purchasing power is actually like and how much disposable income we actually have at the end of the day. I find comparisons like this totally fascinating, and I sure hope you did too.
Obviously, she enjoys it. I love that.
Along that line, if you enjoyed what you saw today, please hit that thumbs up button, leave a comment. If you haven't done already, hit the subscribe button, because it goes a long, long way in helping to recommend our videos and other videos like this one to a wider audience. And quite frankly, I just love reading your comments. I love hearing the feedback. So as always, guys, thanks so much again, and I will see you next Sunday. Tschüss!
Tschüss? Is that how you guys say bye? In German? Tschüss! That's so cute. Okay, wow. I'm very impressed with that video. I really liked how, at least for like the majority of the video, I feel like it was very unbiased between one or the other. I feel like a lot of things that you see is like, why America fails at everything, or why Germany is blah, like, I don't know. But I feel like this was just, hey, this is solely a comparison. We're just throwing the numbers out there. And then she gave some of her insight afterwards, which I really appreciated. But yeah, that was good, because yeah, I don't think so much about people in the same, I don't want to say status, the same, job, same position, same situation, that it looks like US, you still earn more, right? Or you still have more income, that kind of thing. But it is true that there are a lot of things that weren't mentioned in the video, or weren't at least mentioned in detail in the video, that are what ifs. And the what ifs are, I know that a lot of people that I've talked to from just Europe in general, it seems, to not have to worry about the what ifs is what the higher percentage of taxes, it's what makes it worth it for them, which is very interesting. And I actually had a friend of mine say, I'm so excited for you to come to Europe, Denmark specifically, to feel the safety. You know what I mean? It's such an interesting thing that I'm just learning about, and just kind of learning that it's more than, life is more than money, but I love seeing the comparison, because it makes me feel a little bit better about where I live, but it's cool to see what else is possible. So anyway, let me know what you guys think. Yeah, go check them out first, and then you can come back and leave whatever comments. Let me know if there's anything that did need to be corrected, or anything that's maybe been updated in the last month. I'm not sure, but definitely let me know if you want me to, or yeah, what other videos you'd like me to react to. And then, yeah, I'll see you in the next video. Thank you guys so much for watching. See you next time. Bye.